Witam Państwa serdecznie, Błażej Hrapkowicz. Jesteśmy na 24. Międzynarodowym Festiwalu Filmowym Camerimage w Bydgoszczy. Our guest today is the recipient of this year's Lifetime Achievement Award for Directing, Michael Apted. Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Everything fine?
I'm good, yeah.
You made a lot of films. Some of them were in Hollywood, which we would say it's a sort of escapism, fantasy,
Right.
but also some of them are documentaries. Do you believe that, because you once said that cinema is very often not impatient towards ordinary life, do you believe that documentary is this is the sphere in which we can be patient and observe more thoroughly?
Not particularly, no. I mean, I think there's huge advantages in both documentary and in doing feature films. I mean, I once did a subject which I did both a documentary and a movie about, and it was very interesting to show what a documentary can do and can't do, and what a movie can do and can't do. In this particular case, but in every case, I think that the trouble with doing documentaries is how hard it is to get a structure. You know, you have to grab stuff, you have to grab those great moments and put it into a kind of understandable narrative. Too often documentaries wander all over the place, you know, and don't have that kind of precision. And
maybe we sometimes forget that documentary is still a film film which has to be told from the perspective of the director.
Yeah. And then the things that it's hard with a movie is to bring a movie subject to life. You know, the great thing when a documentary is its most powerful, you feel you're seeing things happen for the first time. You know, how do you get that kind of freshness into a movie? You know, and also, but the favour of a movie, you can get the thing structured. You can get a way to tell a story. You have a story and you find with a writer a way to tell that story. So there's advantages and disadvantages in both, I think.
Yeah. When you make big budget films, like for example, The World Is Not Enough, do you also look for something real? Do you try to root this fantasy film in something that feels real?
Well, exactly. I mean, whenever I do any movie, I always approach it as a documentarian. And in that very movie, which was about oil in the Caspian, sort of set around Azerbaijan, I insisted on going down there and taking the art department down there to have a look at the place. You know, and we got some stunning images that we never would have thought about if we hadn't gone down there. So whatever film I do, whether it's something not silly, but something unreal like a Bond, I always approach it from a documentarian's point of view. I think that's my gut reaction, is to be a documentarian. But sometimes you can't do that. When I did Gorky Park, you know, Russia was kind of blacked out. You know, that was Brezhnev, and you couldn't get in, which was very disappointing, because I wanted to know how Russians lived. You know, how an everyday Russian cop, which was what the movie was about, how he lived. But I never could get that information because they wouldn't let us in to see it.
Yeah. The Bond films are a very established franchise, and you say you wanted to somehow bring your own approach to the subject. Yeah. Were you able to do that? Because of course you had to, I imagine you had to, you know, adapt to certain rules which the franchise is governed by.
You have to know what you're in for. I mean, you can't think you're going to rewrite the Bond franchise because it's the most successful franchise in the world. But I must say, when they asked to talk to me about it, I had no idea what I would have to offer. And I couldn't really figure it out until they came clean on me and said, look, we're trying to get more women in to see Bond, and we want to do a Bond which has a woman. Women are more important in it. And since I had a reputation of, you know, working with a lot of actresses and getting good performances out of them, that's why they wanted me to do it. So once I knew they hadn't got me wrong, as it were, then I was comfortable doing it. But at first I thought, what the hell, how the hell am I going to do this? What do they want me to do? So, you know, at least there was a reason for it.
Yeah. Touching on the subject you mentioned, you are associated with the films, because you made these films, about very strong women characters, Gorillas in the Mist, Nell, Coal Mine's Daughter. Do you think it's a particular trait you're interested in, strong female characters? Do they fascinate you?
Well, more than that, I've always been of the feeling, and this is because I grew up in the United Kingdom, is that women's drama is much more interesting than men's drama. Now, in the big things that you would have lived through, if you were my age in America, would have been civil rights and all that. We didn't have that issue in Europe or in the United Kingdom, but we had issues about women. You know, women in society, women trying to penetrate society, women getting jobs, the drama of having a family and having a job and all this.
The issue of emancipation, feminism.
Yeah, yeah, and that to me was the most dramatic thing that was going on in the society I grew up in. You know, my mother was a very smart woman, but she never had a chance to get a job because she had to bring children up and all this kind of stuff, and it was unthinkable that my father would have had anything to do with bringing up the children. So I've always found women's place in society much more interesting than men's necessarily if I'm doing kind of a social film, whatever it is. I mean, a lot of my films have centered around women. One
of your interests is also somehow social and political themes, because if you look, you can look at the Coal Mine's Daughter and Nell and your feature films, but also on your documentaries, Moving the Mountain and so on. They have a strong social and political underpinning.
If I can't find something that's very character driven, I want something that is sort of socially driven, that can set up a kind of dramatic tension. I mean, I don't want to lecture people, but I do think have to have some dramatic conflict going on in the center of the film, whatever the film is. And if I don't find it much in the characters, then it has to be in the environment of the films, so that there can be some conflict. Because, you know, without conflict, films can get very dreary and drab and whatever.
You're also famous from your documentary project, which is going on now for a couple of decades, and the next installment is due in 2019, from what I heard. This is, you know, you observe a certain group of people. You started when they were children, and during the course of all these years, you observed the same people. And it's interesting because I think in feature films, the only director who tried to do something like this was Richard Linklater recently in Boyhood. Have you seen Boyhood?
Sure, yeah.
Do you see any, parallel?
He was very, very nervous about it. I mean, he asked me if I go and watch the film with him and all that sort of stuff. And I did, and he said, "Is it all right?" I said, "Yeah, it's very, very good." And then he said, "Do you have any advice?" And I said, "Keep going," which is not advice. Apparently he's not going to do another one. But no, I was very flattered, and it caused a bit of some kind of rather annoying articles about it, you know, as though he'd stolen from me or whatever, which is kind of nonsense.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.